Mm,
And I think we're live again. We did it. I am always
let's
amazed that
do
the
it.
technology works, Hightower. It's amazing.
Thank you, Deanna. Jim Hightower here with the Hightower Lowdowns Happy Hour on Facebook Live. We produce these things periodically, but tonight we've got something just especially warm and wonderful, and that is a tremendous success story for we the people. And Deanna is with us. Her hair keeps evolving. Uh, there it is. I don't know if this is the transcendent end of it, but it'll keep moving.
Yeah.
Deanna will be connecting us with you, you who are viewing, tuning in here tonight. If you've got questions, if you've got insights, if you've got jokes you want to tell, well, we're here for you. And Deanna will plug those into the system here. Tonight, we're going to talk about activism and persistence. But all that sounds kind of wonky. So what we're really going to talk about is a wonderful human being whom I've known. I've got say from the start for 30 some odd years, who has just been a model of what it should be to be a citizen. And she has done the unthinkable. She, 30 years ago, 1989, in fact, took on Union Carbide, ExxonMobil, Formosa Plastics Incorporated, and other chemical giants because they were doing something she didn't like. And she dared to stand up to them, partially out of naivete, but but also because of just sassiness, which she absolutely embodies. And this is and Diane Wilson is the person I'm talking about, and she is based down in Seadrift, Texas. Not a name most of you will be familiar with. But this is not just a Texas story because it carries over right now into Louisiana, where this same corporation that she battled is trying to screw over the people in St. James Parish over there in an area called Cancer Alley. They want to add more cancer to it. So this is a tremendous story of ordinary people standing up and fighting back. So Diane, thank you so much for joining us. It's a joy to be with you.
Well, I'm delighted to be here with you. I really am. You're one of my favorites.
Well, here you are. Where are you? This is a beautiful looking scene that you have. What is this scene behind you?
Well, this is my cabin in the woods. I'm probably a mile from the Intercoastal Waterway and Spirit Center Bay.
All right. This is an area of Texas that most people don't know anything about. You think of Texas, you think of cowboys singing "Yippee Ki Yo" and stuff like that. But there are many states in Texas, and this is a really emotionally powerful area of our state. It is the Gulf Coast, and it's bay after bay, right? Diane, what are there? There got to be a dozen bays. We know the famous ones like Galveston and Corpus Christi bays, but all in between.
Oh, yeah. We got like Matagorda Bay, Lavaca Bay, Spirit Center Bay, San Antonio Bay, Nueces Bay, uh, and we've got a lot of bays, and I'm located on the mid Texas Gulf Coast, so right in the middle. Galveston's above me, and Corpus Christi is right below me.
But you're not just located there. You have been there, you and your family, for beaucoup years, right? How long do you go back? You are I should say, Diane is a fisherwoman,
That's
a
right.
shrimper, in fact, and comes from what? How many generations?
Four generations, and our family has been in this area probably 140 years. We originally was on Blackjack Island, and matter of fact, that's known as the Whooping Crane Reservation right now, but it used to be communities and farmers and fishermen lived out there, and that's where my family come from, Blackjack Island.
And this is uh, here 1989. I go back. I think it was 1990 that you and I encountered, but 1989. You noticed something that was taking place right there in those bays and on the land around those bays that perked you up. You had not been an activist. You had not been a public speaker or a politician or anything like that. You had run the Froggy's, what was it, Froggy's Fish House?
Yes,
Froggy's Fish
right.
House, and had run your own shrimp boat, the CB shrimp boat.
That's right.
And suddenly, 1989, what happened?
Well, there was a couple of things that happened. One, we were having some problems on the bay with the fisheries, and it was they were starting to fishermen were having a hard time making a living, and that's actually one of the reasons why I was running the fish house, is because I couldn't make a living on the shrimp boat, and I could sit in that fish house, look out through the window, and see the CB just sitting there tied to a post. But it was at that time that I had about 17 boats that I was taking care of,
Wow.
and I had this shrimper that had 4 different types of cancer, and he had lumps all over his body. But he came and pitched me a newspaper article, and it was front page Associated Press, and our county, which is a tiny little old county, it's like the whole county had like 15,000 people, and we were #1 on the toxic release inventory. And it was the first time industry ever had to report what they were putting out smokestacks, what they were putting in the water, what they were putting in injection wells, what they were putting in landfills, what they were trucking out. And can you believe we were #1? It blew my mind, quite frankly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
awful.
you
Yeah.
called a meeting
That's all I
just
did.
of people again with the fishing community there knew something was going wrong because the product that they were trying to catch and sell was disappearing. So you called a meeting just to talk about it, and
That's
what
right.
happened?
Well, the thing of it was almost immediately. It was like almost the next day. I went down to City Hall in Seadrift to have a meeting at the City Hall. There was a little old room next door, and they let people have a meeting. And the secretary came down to the fish house, and I never see a secretary down there. At the fish house, I rarely see anybody, fisherman down there. And here come this lady in a real pretty flowery dress, and she said, "Diane," she said, "you're going to have to move this meeting." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, there are red flags. There are red flags going up." And I said, "Well, I guess I can move it to the Seadrift Elementary cafeteria." And she said, "No, Diane, they want you to totally get it out, not to do it." And then I had economic development call me. I had people calling my brothers to tell them to simmer me down, and I didn't even know what it did. And then I had the bank president, who I had never spoken to in my life, and he came down to the fish house in a 3-piece suit with shiny black shoes, and he told me, he said, "Are you starting a vigilante group to roast industry alive?" And I was just dumbfounded.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why they were so upset just for wanting to have it. I hadn't even had the meeting, and it was really just out of just pure curiosity of why on earth they were so upset, that I just kept persisting. And I eventually found out what it was all about. One, just questioning industry, questioning the whole thing of the chemical industry, and the other was Formosa Plastics was coming in big time.
And that was the story that launched you on a 30-year campaign. Something called Formosa Plastics Incorporated,
That's right.
owned by the richest man in Taiwan at the time. and that they had already been there and they were polluting the bay,
That's
but that they were going to make a massive expansion of
that's
their
right.
factory. And when Jay Harris and I with the lowdown, we went down to visit with Diane at Seadrift and drove down, and on the way to Seadrift, you come across the bridge there at crossing Matagorda, and there is Formosa Plastic, and it's like seeing New York City, Manhattan, from New Jersey or something. It's just this huge expanse of towers, but these are chemical towers. And producing just billions of tons of whatever, because this is a polychloride plant. We're not going to get into the weeds of what all these chemical things are. Diane knows every single one of them, and that these were going right into the bay, and they being the political and economic powers of Calhoun County, where Diane is, wanted very badly for this economic development program to take place. So they were giving away the farm to let this corporation expand enormously. Deanna, I understand we've got somebody who wants to talk to us. What is it?
Oh yeah, we've got a ton of comments. I just wanted to jump in real quick before we get too far. We got actually folks from the St. James Parish are here watching, listening. So solidarity.
Hello.
We're gonna be.
Jane.
Yes, we got you, and we're going to be linking to your fights and how folks can support them. So thank you for doing that activism, and a ton of Diane fans in the comments here. A couple people really love your book, your memoir, which reminded me I wanted to shout out. In case I don't know how much we're going to cover the whole story, but if you really want to take the deep dive level 1 is in this month's issue of the Hightower Lowdown. You can go to hightowerlowdown.org/subscribe if you would like to get this awesome 4-page newsletter in your mailbox every month. And you can also read it online. And Diane has a memoir. I'm going to put the link up to it called An Unreasonable Woman, which I am all about. I feel like we need more of that. And I will put up a link to IndieBound where you can check out her memoir. So that's where, depending on where you're tuning in and what you're able to see tonight, you can definitely find out more of this amazing story. So back to you all.
Well, it is such an amazing story. Diane, if this were a movie, no one would go to see it because they could not believe that
That's
this
true.
could be happening.
That's
As we wrote in the lowdown, this unscripted narrative includes a treacherous Taiwanese billionaire, panic in Calhoun County, the black-headed rebel at the Hideout bar, a stormy night on Lavaca Bay, a plague of nurdles, the shocking decision by a Reagan-appointed judge, and an encounter at Poor Boy's bait shop, and the crazy lady. And the crazy lady would be you, Diane, because you were
oh,
crazy enough to stand up to these bastards. So Diane took them on and filed all kinds of papers and all kinds of processes to try to stop the pollution that she had learned that Formosa Plastics Inc. was dumping into the bay, and others, Union Carbide, ExxonMobil, and et cetera, were dumping in there. So she went after them. And what made you, Diane, so concerned about what was happening to the bay? What made you stand up?
well, I really think the bottom line is I grew up in a community that was totally um, built up around the bay. So when I was very young, we would go to the bays, we would see the fishermen come in, we would see them go out. And I remember going down the fish house and seeing them dragging the shrimp off of the boats and put them in the vats and run them through the fish house. And when I was very tiny, I remember going to the bay and there was this old woman down there, and I could see her clear as day, and she had a personality like a grandmother, and it was a water, and she was real, and she liked me coming down there, and I have never forgotten that a woman and how she felt, and she was family. So it's, I've got this personal relationship with the water that I've never forgotten.
Fabulous, Scott. And then so that inspired you, that encouraged you, made you go out there and do it. And so you began to protest, including what, 3 hunger strikes that you've
Oh,
been on?
3 strikes, yeah.
I'm going to
Num-
show folks the picture from, if y'all want to tell the story of how you met, maybe, I'm going to show the picture from the hunger strike from '89. There it
Yeah,
is. There's,
1989.
there's Hightower and
Diane,
Diane, and yep.
so handsome and so beautiful. There we are.
we were young. We were
Yeah,
young.
so we teamed
Right.
up. I was the agriculture commissioner, and I had done done a stand up with Cesar Chavez in another hunger strike, and the person who uh, coordinated that became involved with Diane's fight, and brought us together. And so, as the agriculture commissioner of the state of Texas, she and I stood up with her in this hunger strike to contest it, to to take it on. But I was inconsequential to it. What was important was that this woman would dare to take on the corporate powers against the powers that be within her own community, not the corporate powers on Wall Street and et cetera. They didn't give a damn, but within her own community, in her own county, in the town of Seadrift, with 15,000, a county of 15,000 people down there, that she would stand up, that had to be intimidating for anybody to do. And Diane, as you told us when we visited with you down in Seadrift a few months ago, that you found that the people of the county, the fishing people themselves, the shrimpers whom you knew and worked with so closely, your own family and et cetera, that they would not stand up with you.
They,
Was
they,
that
they
because
did
they
not.
opposed what you were doing?
No, as many of them did not believe you could fight City Hall. I think the fishermen had been so hard hit, they felt like the last snails was being driven in their coffin, and so they had given up. They had totally given up, and they would just shake my head when they saw me coming, and they said, "You can't do nothing. You can't do nothing," and they weren't going to get involved. And so, not only was it people that was angry about me fighting industry or just rocking the boat. Some people just didn't like me rocking the boat, but a lot of people, it was like they just didn't believe in it. They had lost faith.
So Diane, you then figured out that you got to do something else. That just issuing reports and citing a bunch of statistics about what's going on, et cetera, wasn't working. So what did you decide to do?
Well, I that's when I started doing the hunger strikes. I realized civil disobedience. I had to work outside the box because it was like the laws that be were for industry, and it's like when you tried to go up against it, the playing field was not level at all. So I had to think of stuff, and I started doing civil disobedience. And the first one was a hunger strike. And I remember people were outraged that I was doing a hunger strike. They said people in Texas don't do hunger strike. They do them in California, but they certainly don't do them in Texas. And then I think one of my last actions was I took my boat out to sink it on top of Formosa's discharge pipe. That
Now there
was
you are. Now wait a minute. You took your boat, your personal boat,
my
uh,
personal
the
CB.
CB.
42
CB,
foot, a good boat, a good
42-foot
boat.
shrimp boat that you loved, right?
I love that boat. I did.
Yeah,
I did.
We
yeah.
got an illustration of it here in the
Uh,
lowdown. There it is. There's Diane and the
Right.
CB.
all
And
shrimpers
so,
love their boats. They love their
yeah,
boats.
and so you took a dramatic action that
Yes,
was not about statistics and legalistic arguments, but you wanted to reach people on a visceral level.
I
This
did.
is
Really
something.
did.
This is something that your fellow shrimpers and fishing people generally throughout the community they would understand.
Yeah.
You're not going to just go out and sink your boat, but you chose to do that. You were going to make a statement by having that boat towed out into the bay in the dark of night and sink it
That's
near the outflow pipe where the pollution from Formosa Plastics was coming out. And
that's
that boat, that's a shallow bay, people need to understand, very shallow bay. But that means that the mast of your boat, the CB, would be standing forever out
that's
there
you go over
making
the
a political
bay and you see
statement.
that. Oh, yep.
And
Yeah.
if folks want to hear
And
Diane tell the full story, we actually have audio recordings in the online version of the Hightower Lowdown. You can go to hightowerlowdown.org/Diane, and we have embedded pieces of a larger project that we're working on. And to hear Diane tell this full story, man, I gotta tell you, it will blow you away. Highly recommend it. But yeah, anyway,
hear a
onwards.
little bit of it right now,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Deanna. Let's say, Diane, there you were in a dark and stormy night, and the wind was blowing, as I understand, a norther had come through and howling, and you had convinced this friend of yours against his better judgment to
And
tow
actually,
you and your boat out to
you
that
know
pipe.
that person, it was a shrimper, and he was working at Formosa, and I called him at Formosa. I called
Wow.
Formosa and got a hold of a shrimper and said, "I want you to come and tow my boat." And he was scared. Formosa's management was listening on the phone, and I said, "Just come on down here. You know you want to do it." And he did. He come down there and towed me.
And sure enough, they did know it. Formosa did know that you were going to do
Yes,
that
yes,
because they had a spy, which was who?
my cousin. That was my cousin.
Your cousin.
This
Her
is
own
like, I
cousin.
mean, this is
And
the
that's the reason I
Spy
know
for
layers.
this
Formosa.
because once he got hired, he came and told me. He
I,
come and
I told you this is a movie that you won't believe. So tell us about it. There you go. You're towed out there, and
yeah,
and you're about to get there, but suddenly here comes the Coast Guard.
3 boatloads. It was two little roustabouts and one of those big carriers, and they were on megahorns, and it was literally one of those kind of freak storms, and it was blowing. I bet it was 25-mile-an-hour winds, and it was raining, and so here was this Coast Guard out there on the megahorns, yelling, kept saying, "Is Miss Wilson on that boat?" and and I was just being mum. I kept saying no comment, no comment.
Nobody here but us chickens.
That's right. And so eventually they threw so many ropes. They had 3 boats surrounded me, and I had the one shrimper pulling me and my boat being towed, and so it was the biggest mess. I'm surprised we didn't end out in the Gulf of Mexico floating to Mexico, but uh,
They
but
they had
they
to keep you
finally.
there at night, right? They locked you in the cabin of your own boat because they couldn't tow it in that night.
That's right, and it was probably 1 and 2 o'clock, and they gave the other shrimper, the Coast Guard, and this is Coast Guard totally, is they gave him a full inspection on his boat, just pulling me
On
out
the
there.
spot.
Okay, guy, we're going to inspect your boat, and so
And they said that they were going to arrest you for terrorism, right?
yes, they said I was going to get 17 years for terrorism. That's what they told me. And but they slept on the boat because they were afraid somehow or another I was going to get out of that cabin and get that boat out on top of Formosa's discharge. And so I had a whole crew of shrimp boats. I mean, of Coast Guard on sleeping on my deck. Yeah.
And then something
Amazing.
amazing happened at
Oh,
about dawn.
it
You heard
was
a big raucous noise, and what was that?
It was it was something I have never seen, and I never imagined I would see it, because fishermen are very particular about their boats, and it was a bad storm out there, and you can sink a boat in the Matagorda Bay when it's really really rough, and especially since you had the Coast Guard all over the place, and they would have hauled you off if you're ever doing a blockade. Those guys, those shrimpers, got in their boats and they were shoving their arm out the window, and they just plowed out there in the Matagorda Bay and did a demonstration blockade. And it was like it was the most unreal thing that has ever happened to me. It was, and it was like I wasn't even planning it. It just
raising
happened.
their fists in defiance and standing with you.
Yes, that's what they were doing. I love them.
At last, you had a breakthrough in the public support, and then that led Formosa and the political powers to realize that, well, Diane's not going to go away, and I have to deal with it.
I think that they realized.
And then you had an experience. Let's advance the movie script just a little bit. You got a call from Daryl. Daryl had been himself a whistleblower, a Formosa Plastics plant supervisor, and knew all what was going on inside. And he finally became disgusted by the pollution and lies, and he dared to stand up. And so he suffered mightily. Not only did he eventually get demoted and then eventually have to give up his job, he got beat up. 3 guys. There's a movie on Netflix about that, by the way, interviewing Daryl and about what he had to go through to do it. But he had been somebody who had stood up in the 1990s. So there was Diane on one track standing up and Daryl on another track.
His name is Dale, yeah? Sorry.
Yeah.
Dale.
Am I saying it wrong?
Dale. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. No, that's my fault.
It's pretty close. Pretty close.
Yeah. And then y'all linked up. And how did that go? What happened? He gave you a telephone call and said,
telephone call. Yes, and he was very, very suspicious even while he was calling me. And he said he wanted to meet 2 counties over at a beer joint. It's called the Hideout. And
wait a minute, back up. The Hideout? You met at the Hideout?
It was really called the Hideout, and it was 2 counties over. I had to drive over an hour to get there, and it was, nobody was in there. I think it was like high noon, and I went in, and he was nobody in the beer joint, but he was way in the back with his cowboy hat, and he was just watching me. He was very suspicious, even though he had called me. And but that's the way a lot of the workers are. They are just very, very, they're very suspicious. They expect treachery at all corners because that's been their experience. And so right off the bat, Dale said, "Let me see your purse." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You're wired. You're working for Formosa." And I'm like, "Well, hop to it." And so he opened my bag, and we're just rummaging all the way through it. And he finally, was satisfied I wasn't wired. And we sat down and talked. And and he told me a lot of stuff. He was the one who told me about the plastic pellets. And that I hadn't realized at all. And so
I have a picture of these plastic pellets that I'm going to put up on the screen. They are so cutely called nurdles.
Yeah.
But they are not cute. They are bad. Real bad. Yeah.
Very bad.
Yes, they have their own contamination within them, and then they also then absorb contaminants. That are other contaminants that are in the bay, including mercury and other killer chemicals. So this became the key to how the poisoning was actually happening out of Formosa Inc. Uh, and then so the battle became with the government authorities, state and national government authorities, who at first denied that there was such a thing, and then denied that there was such a thing. It wasn't coming from Formosa, and if
That's
it
right.
did come from
Some
Formosa, there wasn't anything bad about it.
yeah,
I mean, the usual kind
yeah.
of corporate.
And then they denied they ever lost a single pellet because don't you know we can sell that thing so we don't lose anything. I was told that many times.
Now, what these pellets are the essence of everything plastic. Formosa makes these pellets, and then they sell them to other corporations that make plastic bags, that make raincoats, and every other thing, cups and dishes, and every other thing that's plastic in our world. So plastic is contaminating our entire world, and we can talk about that, and we will in another presentation of the lowdowns Facebook Live down the road. But uh, I mean, you kept going to the authorities, and the authorities became something astonishing. I got to read this to you because this is just astonishing. In 2015, Texas water authorities ruled that the pellets release would indeed violate the law if it was going on. And Formosa was legally required to self-report any violation. But since the company had not reported any violation, therefore, there must not have been any release of pellets.
That's right.
And of course, Diane and Dale and others took the authorities out and showed them, hello, here's some pellets.
Yeah.
Here are both pellets, in fact. And Diane, they did nothing, right?
That's right. Mostly they would say that that they do no harm. It's just a little stuff, and so nobody took it at all serious. And it really took us collecting probably over 1,000 samples and probably having over 2,000 videos and photographs and getting a legal, the best little legal law firm, the Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, uh, getting them on board. That's when everybody started taking it a little bit more serious.
And this
And
is
a lot.
This is,
Go ahead.
just thinking about the plastics, and we're, kind of checking on time here a little bit, but talking about the plastics and going into the water and the amount of contamination, and this is what the folks in St. James Parish in Louisiana are facing right now. And this is where we have Rise St. James, Louisiana Bucket Brigade, a number of others. We saw someone from the Delta chapter of the Sierra Club is here hanging out, and they're working with on the St. James Parish stuff. So can you talk a little bit about how that fight has kind of carried on and translated, and how you've been able to kind of take it, and I don't know what updates you might know or have about what's happening there right now, but do you have any stuff that you could share about that?
You mean about us on the? Are
In
you talking to
in
me?
St. James Parish, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I know I gave all of the folks in St. James Parish and Rise Up, I gave them all of the pellets that we had collected. I think it was over 2,500 samples. And because
Millions of pellets,
yes,
millions of
they,
pellets.
yes. A matter of fact, I think the people that did a little, like 3 years of cleanup, they estimated there were like, they had picked up maybe like 67 billion pellets. And that was just an estimate. And so, and this, what the people in Louisiana are looking at, this is a $9 billion facility. Wow. The same thing we've got here, except on a bigger scale. And you've got these little bayous, and you've got the Mississippi River, and you, I, I, I mean, acres. I mean, it's over 2,500 acres that Formosa is, and it's not as big as the one in Louisiana is going to be. I just cannot imagine the how how destructive that is going to be, and the people cannot imagine until they get it there. So they do not want to wait until it's there to see how huge. And it is just unrelenting because it keeps one expansion after another, one unit after another, one permit after another, and it's never ending. And then the traffic of the workers,
Yeah.
5,000 workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
there's also, this is already an area. I'm putting some links up on the screen where folks can take action. We'll drop them into the comments too. And this is already an area that's dubbed Cancer Alley. That's predominantly the most deeply affected people. The people experiencing the highest levels of cancer are Black folk and other people of color. Certainly we've got people talking in the comments about what's happening in the country right now, where we're really spotlighting the vulnerability and the terror that Black people experience. And this is just another way that happens, through the environmental destruction of poor communities and toxizing all of that.
but let us stress here, Deanna, that this is not essential. This does not
Yes.
have to happen.
Exactly.
And that is the story that Diane Wilson brings to us, is that if you and a handful of others, even, because she helped bring a group of the Water Keepers Alliance into Texas, but it basically amounted to 5 people who were doing the collecting of these pellets, these nurdles, as they called them, and taking them to the court through the wonderful work of the Rural Legal Service in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. Tremendous public interest lawyers there confronted them, went to court, and went before a judge appointed by Ronald Reagan.
Again, part of the movie. The Reagan appointed judge. No, just
yes, Reagan appointed judge, but went forward, and lo and behold, that judge sided with who, Diane?
He sided with us, and I was
Us.
I could not believe it. I have never had that before. Never.
right.
It's And I guarantee you, it was worth the 30 years waiting to feel it, to see it. It was an unbelievable feeling of satisfaction. It was worth everything that I've been through in 30 years.
Well, Diane said at the time that it feels like justice. We don't get that feeling that often.
Right.
So getting it and getting a judgment from a judge that indeed this pollution was going on is one thing. But the judge went even further and assessed a $50 million assessment against Formosa Plastics Inc. And that money, and declaring, and the water keepers and Diane have just won a tremendous victory, because it has been ruled that their person will be the overseer of the compliance with the judge's order for no more zero pollution, Formosa Plastics coming out.
Right.
And so it will not be the government determining whether that's being complied with. It will not be the corporation. It will be the water keepers and the people and the fisher people there. And you got something else too, Diane, and that was a commitment to try to help restore the fishing community itself.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
us about that.
That's probably one of my most heartfelt projects, because the industries, the fishery industry in this county is like, the fish houses are gone, the boats are gone. There's where it used to be a whole community and you would have 100 boats out of a community. I mean, now it's like maybe 2 boats. The season is over with in a week, and so we put a large part of the 50 million. I think, matter of fact, this 20 million of it is going into a group that I believe that is their expertise is doing co-ops, and it was actually it was the group started. They won a huge settlement many years ago about black farmers in Georgia who were finally given back the their farms, given
Mm-hmm.
back the funds farms were taken from them. And so
Yeah.
this is the group that is going to be coming to our community and helping us farm co-ops, making it sustainable, making it so we can have a way of doing things together, that we can build up our community again. Because like for instance, like Seadrift, I mean, you go through Main Street, it's dead. Everything's dead. There's nothing there. And we're hoping to get fish houses running, trucks running, net shops going. There's immense possibilities with this, and it can build a community.
That's what it's all about.
Tremendous,
Yes.
tremendous story, tremendous inspiration, really, because it's just ordinary people daring to stand up and persevering. Okay, 30 years is a long time to
It's
persevere, but
it,
sometimes
it,
that's what it takes.
it
I
is.
think of the suffragists in our country, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony and the other leaders
Harriet
of that
Tubman.
movement, the
Yeah.
1840s,
Sojourner
and
Truth.
Sojourner Truth. Let's not forget her, and others who fought that battle. They never lived to vote.
Uh,
It was almost 100 years before women got the right to vote. So the steps you take now pay off down the road. So Diane Wilson, we are so proud of you, and such joy to be enlisted with you in this long-term fight. And we're going to continue communicating with you and with our friends in Louisiana, and also the environmental community all across the country. These fights are taking place everywhere, and it is
yes.
the fight that matters. Thank you,
Right.
Diane. Thank
Thanks,
you so much for
Diane.
being with
For
us.
letting me
Thanks,
be here.
everybody. Join us again. We'll be back in 2 weeks. New special guest, and we'll be announcing that tomorrow. And as always, you can keep up with Diane at nomorenerdles.org is her new website, which just makes it all sound extra cute still. And then you can join us at hightowerlowdown.org, and obviously here on Facebook, and bunches of other places. But let us know how you feel. Let us know your questions, and we'll definitely follow up. But thanks everybody for joining us. Good to see you, Hightower. Good to see you, Diane.
Good to see you.
Yay!
Thank
And
you for
everybody
putting
in
me
the
on.
comments, I mean, just so many people saying, Diana's a visionary, Diana's our champion, Diane is saving us. And we want to remind everybody that you can be Diane too. It's
That's right.
That's right.
everybody can be Diane. So, I mean, not everybody can be Diane, but everybody can take action. So, anyway, we'll talk to y'all soon. Good to see y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Bye bye.
bye.
Bye. Do, 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 do.